All right, guys, so I'm here with David, one of the team leads of our middle school or high school group. And we're going to be actually going through this next type of training on how to lead small groups. Now, David, you and I, we've done youth ministry for years now together, right?
Yeah, 15 plus years at this point.
Yeah, and so kind of give us a little bit of background about like your experience as a small group leader and how that kind of started and such.
Yeah, so I would say my small group leadership experience started when I was about 16. And we were pretty much just thrown into it. There wasn't like a how to be a small leader class. We had a group of 15 to 20 kids that were about our age. And we had them for 40 minutes each week going over the lesson. But before that happened, we had 2 years of intensive discipleship. And those 2 years, even to this day, even like formed the basis of my faith.
Yeah.
There's really like everything I learned from then on, that was the foundation. And so after that, small groups aren't limited to just ministry. I did small groups in the Marine Corps. I went over weapon systems and tactics with a bunch of other Marines. And it was just part of life about how to learn because it's effective. After that, did more ministry with Andrew. We met up again. And I also had camp ministry experience where you have a new set of kids every week for, months. And you got to go through, session after session with them. And you have to build that trust to get that small group experience, have it be effective very quickly.
Yeah. So let's just kind of dive into generally the philosophy of small groups, right? And some of the things as you approach being a small group leader, some of the thoughts that you can wrestle with and things. So what is the biggest, what are some of the biggest obstacles that a small group leader can face going into leading their first group?
Yeah, I think this is especially true for small group leaders, is this intimidation factor. It's like the students, they're intimidated of you because you're a figure of authority, and you're intimidated of them because you don't want to screw up,
right.
Or you're afraid of the questions that they're going to ask you, and you're not sure about what answers you're going to have. So that's what I see is the biggest kind of obstacle. Because if you're a small group leader, someone out there should have made the decision that you have enough knowledge to handle a small group. And a lot of you think, oh, I just need a better system. I need better techniques. I need more knowledge. But you get all those things and your small group experience is still terrible. And it's because of confidence.
Yeah.
It's knowing that the Bible is absolute truth and trusting in that. Trusting in the Bible that it can not only answer the questions that we might run into, but also is our foundation. It's what we rely on first. Instead of trying to answer a question ourselves, we go back to the scripture.
So as we're leading through small groups and trying to figure out, where do we go from here? What's the next steps? What are some practical things that leaders should do just in kind of with the responses that they're getting? How do we read the room?
Well, a lot of that comes with experience.
Yeah.
And there isn't really an A, B, C, D steps to reading a room. What we can do is we focus on not just what's being said, but what's on not being said.
Yeah. So, for instance, maybe the body language of what the group's doing, right? That's something that we can read of all right, they're not really engaging this, something's up.
Yeah.
And then we can correct that by changing the body language, by maybe getting up, by maybe us even being attentive. The tone you and I set as leaders is going to set the stance for the rest of the room, right?
Right. One of the best ways that I found to kind of interact with a group, especially if it's being difficult, is to learn their names. Yeah. And you'd be like, well, that sounds obvious, but if you're in a crowded room and you hear your name called, you will perk up and you will respond to that, and you will look for where that name is being called from. Because that's what we've been doing our whole lives. So if you call out a student's name and go, Steve, and then you ask your question, Steve, he could be sleeping, he will perk up, and he will automatically pay attention. So just learning their names is just a great simple tool.
And I think one of the other things that you can do as a simple tool is just actually write down some of the things they're giving. So if you and I don't know an answer,
Right.
the best things we can do is say, I don't know, right?
I mean, and that's what we were always taught, like way back when. It's our youth leader said, if you don't know the answer, say, I don't know the answer, but I will find someone who does. But you have to write that answer down, and you will have to find someone who knows that answer,
Yeah.
and then you get back to the student with that answer.
So you write down that question, you be able to record who said it, and then the biggest thing is follow up.
Yeah.
And it's a great way to build a close relationship with that teen. It shows, and they probably won't even actually care the next day, like to your face. They're like, oh, that's cool, thanks.
Right.
Walk away. But in the back of their mind, like, hey, this leader remembered, this leader followed up with me, and now here's a good relationship being built that can lead us easily into discipleship.
Right. Never make up an answer. Never feel like you have to know everything about the Bible.
Yeah.
None of us do. There is not a single person who knows everything, who's an expert in everything. So don't feel like you need to give an answer on the spot, or they're going to like fall away from God or something like that.
Yeah.
It's record it, find an answer, and get back to them.
Yeah. David, do you have anything that you, like, last little bit of wisdom you want to pass on?
Yeah, I mean, my last bit of wisdom is go for it. You know, no amount of book learning is going to prepare you fully. No amount of videos, no amount of YouTube tutorials is going to get you there unless you actually go out and do it, unless you actively engage. You know, we may have bad circumstances that throw us off during the week. Don't let those get to you and throw you off. Because a lot of times, all these trials that we go through, that's God's way of just testing us. That's God's way of refining us. So if you're feeling called to do youth ministry, you're feeling called to do small groups, but there's like a little voice that says, oh, I'm not good at this, or I don't know enough. Like, you need to stomp that out.
Yeah.
And go for it.